Welcome to the Power of Artificial Intelligence. This is AI Podcast. Are you ready? Let's go.
All right, everyone, buckle up because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that's blowing up everywhere you look. I mean, it's unavoidable. Generative AI.
It's definitely having a moment, that's for sure.
And we're not just skimming the surface here. Oh no, we're going deep, deep down, getting into what makes this technology tick, how it's already shaking things up in the real world, and yeah, we're going to grapple with some of those big ethical questions that come along with any game-changing tech. And believe me, this one's a game changer.
It definitely is.
So from what I'm gathering, reading through all this, generative AI, it's not just another AI buzzword. It's like the creative powerhouse of the AI world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been used to AI that analyzes data, finds patterns, makes predictions, all incredibly useful stuff, don't get me wrong. But generative AI, this is different. This is AI as a creator. We're talking about algorithms that can churn out original content, images, music, text, even code, the whole new ballgame.
Okay, see, this is what gets me so jazzed about this whole thing. It's like AI graduating from, I don't know, from detective work to full-on artistry.
Love that analogy.
Like, imagine showing an AI a million photos, not just to identify what's in them, but to actually paint a brand new picture based on what it's learned about style, composition.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about here. Not just understanding existing data, but creating something entirely new from it.
And the crazy thing is, this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. Our sources are packed with examples of generative AI already out there in the wild. Like, do you catch that bit about companies using it to whip up these incredibly realistic virtual models for their ad campaigns?
Yeah, that's fascinating, and it's just the tip of the iceberg when you think about the potential applications here.
For real. But before we go hurtling too far into the future, let's back up a sec and make sure everyone's with us on the nuts and bolts, the how it works stuff. Because honestly, some of this neural network stuff can sound a little intimidating. You know what I mean?
Sure, it can seem like stepping into a black box, but the basic idea is actually quite elegant. Imagine the human brain with its billions of interconnected neurons.
Okay, I'm picturing it kind of like a massive web of like pathways and connections, right?
Exactly. So neural networks in AI, they're inspired by that structure. They use these interconnected nodes, kind of like artificial neurons, to process information. And when we talk about training a neural network, we're talking about feeding it massive amounts of data. So those connections, those pathways between neurons, they start to strengthen or weaken, allowing the network to learn patterns and relationships within that data.
So it's like teaching a computer to see the world by showing it millions of pictures, and eventually it starts to understand what makes a tree, a face, all that.
Right. But here's where generative AI kicks it up a notch. It takes that learned information, says, okay, now let's use this to create something completely new. And that's where things get really interesting, because there are different types of generative AI models, each with its own strengths and quirks.
And this is where my brain starts to go into overdrive, because it feels like every day there's a new model, a new breakthrough. It's a lot to keep up with.
It is a fast-moving field.
Mm.
One of the most talked about models is the GAN, the Generative Adversarial Network.
Oh yeah, JANs. Heard that one thrown around a lot.
Yeah, imagine two neural networks,
Yeah.
right? But instead of working together, they're pitted against each other, like in a constant duel. You have the generator network trying to create new data, an image, a piece of music, whatever it may be.
Okay, the creative one.
Exactly. And then you've got the discriminator network, which is trained on real data. And its job is basically to play detective, to try and spot the fakes, the stuff the generator's making, basically saying, nope, that's not quite right, try again.
So it's like a constant back and forth, a creative push and pull.
Exactly. And through that adversarial process, through that constant challenge, the generator gets better and better. Its creation's becoming more and more realistic, more sophisticated.
And that's how we end up with like AI-generated images that are practically indistinguishable from photographs, music that sounds like it was composed by a human, right?
Exactly. It's that level of realism, that creative power that makes generative AI so fascinating. And let's be honest, a little bit unnerving too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're on the verge of blurring the lines between what's human-made and what's AI-generated. It's both exhilarating and kind of makes you want to hit the pause button for a sec and think, hold on, where's this all heading?
And those are the conversations we need to be having, right? Because like you said at the top, with any powerful technology, especially one with this much creative potential, comes some really big ethical questions.
Yeah, and those questions, they're not just hypothetical anymore. Our sources dive into some real head scratchers, especially around copyright and plagiarism. If an AI generates a piece of music that sounds exactly like a famous composer's style, who owns the rights to that?
Right, and it goes even deeper than that. We have to think about the potential for misuse. Could someone use generative AI to create fake news articles that are so convincing, so realistic, that they spread like wildfire online?
Or even use it to impersonate real people in videos or audio recordings? I mean, the implications are huge.
They are. It's like we're handing incredibly powerful tools over without necessarily having all the safeguards in place yet.
Which is why I think it's so important to talk about not just the how of generative AI, but also the should we.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that needs to happen across disciplines, across industries, and honestly across society as a whole.
For sure. And it's a conversation we'll definitely keep revisiting here on the show. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about what's next. Where do we see generative AI going in the future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the exciting, maybe slightly terrifying answer is that we're really just scratching the surface. Things are
Yeah.
moving so rapidly.
Like, hold on tight, because it's going to be a wild ride, kind of rapid.
Yeah. Think about it. We've talked about images, music, text. But what about personalized educational experiences that adapt to your learning style? What about AI assisting architects in designing sustainable buildings that are both functional and beautiful? What about AI generating new drugs and treatments tailored to your specific genetic makeup?
It's like we're on the cusp of a creativity explosion, where AI isn't just a tool, but a collaborator.
Absolutely. It's not about replacing human creativity,
Yeah.
but about amplifying it, augmenting it, exploring uncharted territories together.
Together being the key word there. Okay, folks, I don't know about you, but my head is officially buzzing with possibilities and, honestly, a few healthy anxieties about the road ahead. But hey, that's the thing about exploring cutting-edge tech, right? It's supposed to challenge us, push us to think differently, maybe question a few assumptions along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all of this? How do you see generative AI shaping our world, for better or for worse? Hit us up on social media, join the conversation. This is one deep dive that's far from over.